Hey there, Seb by the Realtor here. In this video, I'm going to address the question of the final walkthrough. If you are a buyer or a seller of a home here in the Bay Area and you want to know what's up with that final walkthrough, then you definitely want to watch this video. So when you buy a house in California, the residential purchase agreement, which is the typical contract that buyers throughout the state of California use to buy a home, the California residential purchase agreement does have in it a right for the buyer to have a final walkthrough. But it's just not the standard California contract that has that. I would wager that just about every contract has that the buyer has the right to do a final walkthrough. Now, there's a lot of consternation on the part of sellers about what the buyer is expecting to see during the final walkthrough, but I want all you sellers out there to relax because there is nothing really that you need to be concerned about with a buyer walkthrough. The buyer walkthrough is not a contingency of the sale normally, at least per the standard wording of the California Residential Purchase Agreement. The walkthrough is simply to make sure that the home is in substantially the same condition as it was on the day which the buyer made the offer to the seller. So what does that mean, substantially the same? What it means is that the property has not really had any changes to it which would affect its value. So are there any new holes in the walls or the floor or the roof? Has there been any leak damage from any source? Is there a mold spot on the ceiling that didn't used to be there before? So these are the kinds of substantial damages to the property that a buyer might be looking for on the final walkthrough. Now, regardless of if there's any damage or not, the buyer still has to buy the house because this is not a contingency of the sale, but the seller is required to return the home to the condition that it was in on the day that the buyer made the offer. But I have to tell you that normally this is not what the buyer is really looking for on the final walkthrough. What the buyer is really looking for is, has the seller actually moved out of the house? Like, have they got all the stuff out of the house, which they are supposed to do? Because in the residential purchase agreement, it does say that the house is to be turned over to the buyer vacant and devoid of all trash, personal property, and debris. So really, that is what the buyer is mostly doing on the final walkthrough. They are walking through to make sure that the seller has got their stuff out, that they are not leaving a bunch of junk behind, but they want to make sure also that the right stuff is being left behind. So for example, the purchase agreement usually says that the appliances are supposed to stay with the property. So obviously the stove would be a big thing that would be staying with the property, but what about the built-in dishwasher and like the built-in microwave and the vent hood and of course the hot water heater and the lighting fixtures and plumbing fixtures? They are also supposed to stay as well. So the buyer would be walking through to make sure that all of those are there. Now, one point of contention often is like the washer and dryer, which may or may not be included in the contract. And many times I have seen a washer and dryer walk away when they weren't supposed to walk away. So the final walkthrough is an opportunity for the buyer to go and make sure that those included appliances, like the washer and dryer, are actually there or not. Refrigerator is also another one which may or may not be included in the sale, and if it is included in the sale, the buyer is going to want to make sure that certainly the refrigerator is there as well. Another thing that the buyer is going to want to be looking at during their final walkthrough is the landscaping, because the landscaping is supposed to be maintained in substantially the same condition as it was on the day that the buyer made the offer. So once your home is in contract, you can't just neglect your home. You need to be doing the typical maintenance that has always been done on the home, including the landscaping. So if the lawn was mowed on the day the buyer made the offer, the lawn should be mowed on the day the seller gives possession of the house to the buyer. If there are any flower beds, those flowers need to be watered and maintained. The bushes need to be cut back and maintained as well. So just because your house is sold, don't think that this gives you the right to sort of neglect it from that point forward. You need to make sure that you are going to be turning over the house in substantially the same condition to the buyer, including the landscaping, and making sure that all the appliances specified in the contract are there and that nothing else is on the property. All the other trash, debris, and personal property needs to get removed. So really, the final walkthrough, it's really almost a formality, but it's not actually a formality because the buyer is going to be making sure that the seller has done all the things the seller is supposed to do, left the property free of devoid trash and personal property, has left the correct appliances, and has made sure that the landscaping has been kept up. But if all of those things are true, you could definitely expect that your final walkthrough will be a very mundane affair. Usually a final walkthrough does not take more than 15 minutes, something like that. It may be that the buyers spend more time at the property, sort of making plans for what's going to happen, once they actually do finally get the keys and are able to start working on the property or start moving in. So the buyer may hang out for an hour or something like that, but you, the seller, should not be worried about finding any kind of issue with the sale so long as the home is in substantially the same condition as it was when the buyer made the offer. So that really is it. There is nothing much for any seller to be worried about with a final walkthrough. I have never seen a final walkthrough blow up a sale. I have seen it result in a couple of loose ends that need to be tied up. I have seen it resulting in a washer and dryer and a refrigerator returning to the property from time to time, but it has never once in my long experience selling homes caused a deal not to close. So no need for any anxiety there around that final walkthrough. All right, well, that is all I have for this video. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope you have gotten a little teeny tiny bit of value out of this video. And if you have, I'm guessing, just a guess, that you might also enjoy some of these videos over here. These are some of the most popular videos here on my YouTube channel, so please do take a look. All right, that is all I have for this video. Thank you so very much for watching, and please stay tuned.